everybody, happy holidays. Now that we are in full swing of the holiday season, we need to make some pie.
Well, they say he's not coming back and nothing can fill the void, but at least we can try with food. I'll make some apple pie, come on in. It's Dead Dad's Kitchen.
Okay, so I do have a pie crust recipe that I love so much. It's one of my go-tos. It is right there. You can check out that video and grab the recipe right there. I already have some of those chilling in my freezer right now, just so we can cut down on some of the time. Pie making is not the quickest process. Like if you were like, oh, I want to bring a quick dessert to Thanksgiving dinner, I wouldn't suggest the apple pie that we're gonna make today. I would suggest more like cookies or pudding. I don't know. Those are the only two desserts I can think of. Pie is so wonderful and so beautiful, and it is such an absolute like joy to accomplish. You are more than welcome to use a frozen pie crust. It's not something I believe in, but that's just because I'm incredibly vain, and if I don't get to say I did every single thing that's a part of the dessert, I don't want to do it. Feel free to grab a pie crust. Feel free to make the one that I gave you a recipe for, or if you have a classic go-to, use that one. I bet it's fantastic. I would love to try it actually. And maybe I will, who knows? Maybe that's a little allusion to something in the future. Whatever. So this is going to be a little mini baby series of pie making. We're going to do an apple pie in this video and a pumpkin pie in the next video. Please make sure you give both of these a watch, and I would love for you to try to make both. In the meantime, before you can start to make it, let's tell you how. You are going to need a ton of apples. I have 13 apples here. I have a mix of Granny Smith, Fuji, and Honeycrisp. If you love Granny Smith apples and you like a really tart pie, use all Granny Smith. If you want a sweeter pie, use Honeycrisp and Fuji and like a Golden Delicious. I like to mix all these together because I think they bring a lot of wonderful components separately. You're also going to need a bunch of spices, butter, flour, white sugar, and brown sugar. You'll need a lemon, like salt, and I think that's enough. Okay, so you will see I've got a little pot right here. What we're gonna do is grab a microplane grater. If you have one of these, fantastic. If you don't, that's okay. You'll just need to get a zester of some sort so that we can zest our lemon. And like a lot of things with baking, there are some components that aren't to give anything flavor or to change the like profile of it. It's just for like functional purposes. So like for example, you know, sometimes I'll put sour cream in a blueberry muffin. It's not to make it taste like sour cream. It's not Taco Tuesday, but it's to give it a really beautiful, like tangy, very moist foundation. So sometimes things sound like they'll give something a lot of flavor and they won't. Just like this lemon for an apple pie. We want to add some zest and some juice, not to make it a lemon apple pie, but to keep them from not browning and just to keep such a sweet and rich pie having a little bit of acidity in there, not just from our apples. And the reason I'm holding my microplane up this way is because if I were to do it over it, I wouldn't really have much of an idea of how much zest I'm getting. And when you're zesting, once you see those little patches start to get a little lighter, that's when you want to move on to the next part, because then it'll start to get bitter and not lemony. So we like rough zested one lemon, and that should be great. So boom. We're also going to add some of the juice of this lemon down in here so that when the apples do go in and get tossed around in it, they don't brown. So I have de-stickered and washed all of my apples, but you want to make sure you dry them off really well. Apples have a whole lot of moisture in them, because I know it's going to sound crazy that all of this is going to fit in this. It won't look like that. So don't worry. I'm gonna show you with one, and we're gonna do some little movie magic so that you don't have to stick around for the 20 minutes it's gonna take me to do all of these. So you just want to peel your apple so that there's no skin left. The reason we're taking off the skin is not because it's not delicious, but it's because when it gets cooked, it can be sort of like papery. If a couple little tiny pieces get left behind, what are you gonna do? It's a surprise. I also will usually keep a little bag in my sink just so I have a place to put all of this. I don't have to keep running back to the trash can. Here's how I like to cut my apples. I like to do one and another and one more and one more. Oh, those are gonna be so much better in a pie. You want about 1/8 of an inch strips. You don't want them to be too thick because then they won't cook through. Because let's be honest, the reason we're all eating apple pie is not to eat the apple. As equally sized as we can get all of them is what we want. Apple number 1 is going into our pot. And we're gonna give that a stir so that it is nice and coated in that lemon juice. And we're gonna do this with every single apple. The reason we are putting them in here with no heat on, could you imagine if I had accidentally left that on? The reason we're putting them in here with no heat on is because we are going to cook our apple pie filling prior to baking. Believe me, it is so much better. You're gonna see how much these apples go down in size, and you are never going to make an apple pie the same again. When you put them in the oven to bake without any prior cooking, it just takes too long, and then you overcook your pie and your apples are still kind of crunchy and blah, blah. You don't wanna do it, you don't wanna deal with it, don't worry about it. I will see you in 12 apples time. So we weren't able to put all of our apples into our pot. How impressive was that? As you can see, it's really full, so I didn't want to overcrowd it because we're also going to add some other stuff in here. The magical mixture in this bowl is what's going to give us our caramely, beautiful, like decadent syrup that these apples are basically going to do all of the work in making. Fruit has something in it called pectin, which is a natural thickener. We don't have to add anything. It is already in our sweet little appley babies. And I'm going to add in 1/3 of a cup of flour, 1/2 a cup of brown sugar, 1/2 a cup of white sugar, like a teaspoon of salt, a ton of cinnamon, and a little bit of fresh ground nutmeg. And we just have this over a medium heat. And just gently. So obviously this is very full, so I'm just trying to be extra cautious to get everything tossed out. Let's see if I can make this work again. I wouldn't advise that. I would advise a bigger pot. You just want to make sure that it is all coated. Oh, I can already see it's starting to release some juices. Oh my gosh, incredible. I've gotten you this far in the process to sort of ease you into the fact that this apple pie may take even a little bit longer than you think. So hopefully you already started making it and you are stuck with me now. Oh, a huge shout out to the Food Charlatan right there. They have a ton of incredible tips. And one of the things that they taught me was that you want everything to be pretty cool when it goes into the oven. So these apples are gonna come out hot, 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 and we're gonna need to let them cool. So that will take a little bit of extra time, but I have a very strong feeling it's gonna be worth it. Because what I've done before, I have my apple pie filling, and then I just put it into my shell and we bake it off. That actually immediately melts the butter because the filling is so hot. So we're going to let this hang out covered over medium heat for about 20 minutes. I stir it like every minute just to make sure everything's pretty careful, but we wanna trap in some of that moisture so everything cooks down from both sides. I'm gonna get my little quarter sheet trays prepared so that we can put the apple pie filling into here. Are you guys making anything for Thanksgiving? And if you are, what are you making? Oh, see how much steam already came out of there? Oh goodness, maybe we gotta... Okay, so I brought mine down to medium low because there was a little bit of burning happening. So we're gonna be cautious of that. It is getting so caramely already. We are at the point where I like my apple pie filling to be. Means they're really pliable. Ow. They're really... That's a bad idea. They're very pliable, but they still have a little bit of a bite to them. So it's not crunchy, it's just not mushy. So I'm gonna turn off the heat. You guys can tell I got some burning on the bottom. That is okay. We need to let that come to at least a little cooler than it is right now before we put it in the fridge, or else it's just gonna be like way too hot to go in the fridge. So while our apple pans come like a little bit closer to room temp, they're just not as hot, we'll throw them in the fridge, but we're gonna get started on our Streusel topping, which is what makes this a Dutch apple pie. And it's going to be so good. Okay, so I have actually recently, funnily enough, discovered the absolute secret to a perfect crumb topping. I used to have a lot of issues with this. It would not clump up properly. It would not stay in those clumps if I did finally get it to clump up. Whoops. If I did finally get it to clump up. But the secret is a lot of butter, which I know you could have guessed because it is me. Also, my arch nemesis, melted butter. But with this recipe, it really enhances it. These I can put into the fridge now because they're not too hot. And let's see, do we have fully melted butter? Yes, we do. Take a gander. Our streusel is going to go into the fridge as well, because the thing that is going to make our apple pie so much better than anybody else's at the Thanksgiving table is that we had all of our ingredients super cold before we put them in a super hot oven. So we have our oven preheated to 425 degrees. I also have a pizza stone resting on the rack that's positioned in the middle of the oven. The reason we have this, you could also use a baking sheet if you don't have a pizza stone or a pizza steel. We want the bottom of this pie to still be crispy and flaky. We don't want a soggy bottom in any situation, life or pie. We have a really, really, really hot heat source right on the bottom where the bottom of our pie is gonna go, so it's immediately gonna start cooking. We also have a really, really hot oven, which we will not keep that hot for the duration of the bake time, but we wanna start it in there so it gets blasted with heat right away. Let's put this pie together. Everything has been hanging out in my freezer, so it's not frozen, but it is nice and cold, so everything goes into a really hot oven, really cold. Streusel included. Can you believe that this is like 10 apples? So we still have some of our streusel left because we are going to add that when we bring our heat down in about 15 minutes. We're also gonna use a cool little makeshift pie cover so that the sides don't get too burnt, but we can cook all of this extra streusel really evenly and beautifully. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. Okay, so what we've done is just take our pie right out of the oven. It was at 425 degrees for 15 minutes, and then we simply lowered the temperature to 350 degrees for 10 minutes. We've now taken it out. We have the rest of our chilled streusel that we're gonna put on top of it. If you have any super big lumps, you can just break those up a little bit, and this is when we start to like pile it on. And just be gentle, you guys are working with a very hot pie. And because this is gonna stay in the oven for quite some time, this is where our little tin foil cover really comes into play. And we're gonna put it right over here. Not like tightly covering it or anything, just enough so that the fans in the oven don't blow it around. Putting it directly back onto that pizza stone in the 350 degree oven. I don't know if you can tell how much the light has changed, but it's been a while. This pie ended up being in the 350 degree oven for like an hour extra. And if you want, you couldn't put like a large baking sheet underneath the rack that you're baking the pie on, because if any of the juices like flow out, it goes on the bottom of your oven and it gets really smoky. Not that I would know. Oh my living God. Okay, I can't move it too much. But here's our pie. Now, something I love to do when I'm making food with you guys, I really like to try the food, of course, so I can tell you how good it is. However, when you're making, oh, that hurt so much. However, when you're making an apple pie, the filling is so hot and so gooey and so sugary, which, just so you know, that's one of the worst burns you can get, is a sugar burn. You need to let this bad boy sit out for like not an hour, not like 25 minutes, 4 hours. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because it needs to like re-goop and re-solidify. That's not gonna happen in the next 5 minutes. So I will just have to insert a picture of it, all sliced up and pretty right there. If you guys have, I don't know, a chill like 6 hours to make this pie for your Thanksgiving table, I can promise you it will be the best one that is at your family's dinner or your friend's dinner or your solo dinner. Give this pie a try. Thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure you check out our other episode, which is a pumpkin pie episode, which will be a lot quicker. There's like 2 steps to that one. So thanks for watching. I love you so much. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving, or just a happy Thursday if that's your vibe. I'll talk to you later. Bye. I have nothing to eat, so I couldn't take a bite.